In a quiet corner of a centuries-old monastery, where stone walls meet warm candlelight, there is a room known as the scriptorium. Tonight, let us wander there together, slowly, unhurriedly, and follow the gentle rhythm of a day in the life of a medieval scribe. In the earliest hours, before the sun has fully climbed over the horizon, the monastery lies in a hushed stillness. The stone walls, cool and damp from the night air, seem to hold the echoes of centuries within them. Our scribe lies on a simple wooden cot in a small cell with whitewashed walls. The scent of old wood and faint beeswax from the previous night's candle lingers gently in the air. He stirs awake not to the blare of noise, but to the soft toll of a distant bell, its sound deep and resonant, rolling slowly through the corridors. He rises without hurry, swinging his feet onto the cool stone floor. His robe, woven from coarse, undyed wool, is draped carefully over his shoulders. Outside his narrow window, the first light of morning gathers, turning the eastern sky a shade of pale lavender. The corridor beyond his door is empty, save for the faint shuffle of another monk somewhere far down the hall. As he steps out, his sandals make a soft, hollow sound against the flagstones. He walks slowly through the cloister. The arches frame small gardens where dew glistens on herbs and low shrubs. A sparrow flits from one perch to another, its wings making barely a whisper. The bell rings again, this time joined by the lighter chime of a smaller bell calling for morning prayer. He pauses in the cloister walkway, drawing in the crisp air scented faintly with rosemary from the herb beds. The morning prayer is brief, a chant echoing softly under high vaulted ceilings. The candles flicker, their light glowing against the carved stone walls. The scribe's voice mingles with the others in a low, measured hymn. There is no urgency here. Time seems to stretch gently, the moments elongated like shadows in early morning light. When prayers conclude, the monks disperse quietly. Some head to the kitchens, others to the fields. Our scribe turns toward the scriptorium, but first he lingers in the courtyard. A fountain murmurs gently in the center, and he watches the ripples, thinking of the pages he will fill today. The sky now warms to a soft gold, and the day begins in earnest. Not with a rush, but with a calm and deliberate grace. In this monastery, dawn is not a moment, but a slow unfolding. A gentle invitation to another day of quiet work and steady devotion. The scriptorium is a long, narrow room with windows high upon the walls. When the scribe steps inside, the room greets him with a familiar mixture of scents: old parchment, ink, and the faint tang of candle smoke from last night's vigil. Rows of wooden desks line the walls, each equipped with a sloped surface, an inkwell, and a sand tray for blotting. He chooses his place near the window, where the light is soft but steady. Before him lies a sheet of fine parchment, prepared by hand from animal skin. It is smooth to the touch, yet carries a faint organic texture that tells of its origins. Beside it sits his quill, a feather trimmed to a precise point, and his ink, black as midnight, resting in a small clay pot. The scribe dips the quill slowly, allowing the ink to gather at the tip without spilling. He draws the first letter of the day with utmost care, the quill gliding over the page in gentle strokes. The only sound is the soft scratch, scratch, scratch as each letter forms, precise and deliberate. This work is not rushed. Each word is an act of patience, a small offering to the page. Around him, other scribes work in near silence. Occasionally, there is a faint cough, or the rustle of parchment being turned. From somewhere distant in the building, the low murmur of chanting, floats faintly on the air. The scribe pauses, lifts his quill, and gently blows on the fresh ink to hasten its drying. Then he continues, line after line, the words taking shape in neat, unwavering columns. Above his desk hangs a narrow shelf with reference texts, an older manuscript bound in worn leather, a small Latin dictionary, and a psalter. He consults them occasionally, running a fingertip down faded lines of script. The letters in the reference book are dark and crisp despite their age, a silent encouragement to strive for that same clarity. The morning light shifts slowly, and a beam of sun creeps across the wooden floorboards. It catches on the rim of his inkwell, making the black liquid glint for a moment like polished obsidian. He pauses once more, stretching his fingers, feeling the slight ache in his hand from holding the quill. There is no hurry. Time in the scriptorium is measured not in hours, but in pages filled, in careful strokes laid one after another. After some hours, he sets aside his quill to work on illumination. On a side table, pigments and tools await. The mortar is smooth and heavy, its stone surface cool under his fingertips. He takes a small lump of azurite, a mineral the color of deep ocean water. Carefully he crushes it, rolling the pestle with a slow, rhythmic motion. The sound is soft and granular, a soothing rasp that seems to blend with the distant birdsong drifting through the window. Next, he adds a few drops of water, then continues grinding. The blue deepens, becoming a paste as smooth as silk. Nearby, small jars hold ochre for warm yellows, malachite for green, and a precious pinch of gold leaf for highlights. Each color is treated with reverence. These hues are not common. They are gifts from earth and sky, ground by hand, transformed into art through patience. He prepares his brush, made from fine animal hair bound tightly to a reed handle. The parchment before him shows a large capital letter outlined faintly in pencil. He dips the brush into the blue pigment, steadying his hand. With the lightest touch, he fills the letter's curve, watching as the color seeps into the parchment's surface. The effect is calming, mesmerizing, the letters slowly blooming with life. Tiny flourishes are added next, slender vines and delicate leaves twining around the letter's edge. For the leaves, he uses green mixed with just a breath of white to soften its tone. Each stroke is a breath in and a breath out, a rhythm almost meditative. There is no sound in the room but the whisper of brush against parchment and the quiet sigh of his own steady breathing. Once the colors are laid, he takes up a thin gilding knife and places a fragment of gold leaf onto a spot of adhesive. He presses it gently, then breathes softly, and the gold clings, catching the light. Even in this simple, muted room, the letter now glows, a jewel among the text. He sits back for a moment, letting the pigments dry, admiring the harmony of colors and forms. Outside, the wind stirs the leaves in the cloister garden, and their shadows flicker gently on the scriptorium walls. The work of illumination is slow, deliberate, and deeply satisfying. It is not just decoration, it is devotion in color, a quiet celebration of beauty in a world of words. By midday, the bells toll softly again, signaling the time for a meal. The scribe sets down his brush and steps into the bright courtyard. The sun is higher now, warm and steady, casting soft shadows beneath the cloister arches. The air carries the scent of thyme and sage from the herb beds, mingling with the faint aroma of bread baking in the kitchen ovens. He walks slowly along the garden path, feeling the stone warm beneath his sandals. The sound of his steps mingles with the gentle trickle of the fountain at the courtyard's center. Birds rest on the low walls, tilting their heads curiously. A few fellow monks are already seated on benches, their heads bowed in quiet conversation or simple thought. At the refectory, the meal is plain but satisfying. A crusty loaf of bread, a wedge of cheese, and a bowl of lentil stew. The scribe eats slowly, tearing the bread into small pieces, dipping them into the stew, savoring each bite. He listens to the soft rustle of robes and the occasional muted cough. Outside the window, bees hum lazily among the lavender bushes. After eating, he carries his simple wooden bowl back to the kitchen, rinses it with cool water, and places it neatly on the shelf. There is no rush to return to work. Instead, he wanders back to the courtyard and finds a quiet bench under the shade of a fig tree. The leaves above shift gently with the breeze, dappling the stone bench with soft patterns of light. He leans back and watches the world without urgency. A butterfly drifts past, its wings the color of faded parchment. In the distance, he can hear a novice monk reciting psalms in a low, sing-song voice, a rhythm as steady as the wind. The scribe folds his hands in his lap, closes his eyes for a moment, and simply breathes. In this moment, the world feels still, timeless. The tasks of the day, the careful writing, the pigments and gold leaf, all are set aside. There is only the warmth of the sun, the coolness of the shade, and the soft, steady rhythm of life in the monastery. When at last the bell sounds again, calling them back to their duties, he rises slowly, feeling rested, his mind calm and ready for the quiet labor ahead. The light in the scriptorium has changed by the time he returns. The afternoon sun is lower now, streaming through the high windows in golden slants. Dust motes float lazily in the beams, moving as if in slow motion. The air feels still, as though the whole world outside has paused. The scribe settles back at his desk. The manuscript lies open, the last letter of the morning's work waiting to be continued. He picks up his quill, freshly trimmed, and dips it into the ink once more. The words flow steadily, line after line, forming verses that have been copied and preserved for generations. Now and then, he pauses to sharpen his quill with a small knife, catching the shavings in a tiny box. The sound of blade on feather is delicate, crisp. He brushes the page with a soft cloth to keep it clean, then resumes writing, his hand moving in calm arcs and careful loops. As the hours pass, the scriptorium takes on a warmer glow. Candles are lit, their flames wavering gently, casting long shadows across the desks. The scent of melted wax mingles with the earthy ink and the faint tang of vellum. Outside, the faint toll of distant church bells marks the passing of time. The scribe pauses to admire his work. Rows of perfectly aligned letters, each stroke deliberate, each word a piece of a larger tapestry of thought. The illuminated letters catch the candlelight, glowing softly as though alive. He feels a quiet sense of satisfaction, not pride, but a calm awareness that this labor preserves something precious for future eyes. The evening deepens. The chants for Vespers begin softly in the chapel nearby, a low, melodic hum that drifts through the thick walls. He continues writing until the page is complete, then carefully sands the ink, closes the manuscript, and ties it with a strip of linen to keep it safe. Night settles gently over the monastery. Outside, the sky darkens to deep indigo, and the first stars begin to shimmer like distant lanterns. Within the scriptorium, the last candle is snuffed, its smoke curling upward in a thin silver thread. The scribe stands slowly, feeling the day's labor in his shoulders and hands. He takes a moment to look around the room. At the desks, the ink pots, the shelves of old manuscripts. Each item tells a quiet story, not of grand events, but of patient hours spent preserving knowledge and beauty. As he steps out into the cloister, the night air is cool against his skin. The herbs in the garden release a richer scent now, touched by dew. He walks slowly along the stone path, listening to the gentle chirp of crickets and the soft rustle of leaves. Far off, an owl hoots, low and steady, a sound as old as time. In the chapel, a single lamp burns, casting a warm pool of light on the altar. He kneels for a final prayer, words whispered so softly they seem to merge with the stillness itself. There is no sense of ending, only continuation. The knowledge that tomorrow he will rise again to repeat this calm, steady rhythm. Back in his cell, he sits on the edge of his cot and gazes at the moonlight spilling through the narrow window. The manuscript he worked on today rests safely in the scriptorium, waiting for the next page, the next word, the next breath of life. He feels no rush, no burden, only a quiet gratitude for the work, the day, and the stillness of the night. The monastery around him settles into deep silence, broken only by the distant dripping of water from a gutter and the occasional sigh of wind. The scribe lies down, pulling the simple wool blanket over himself, and closes his eyes. The images of the day, blue pigment swirling in a mortar, gold leaf catching the light, lines of script marching neatly across parchment, drift gently through his mind like soft clouds. Sleep comes not suddenly, but gradually, like dusk falling over the cloister. And in that sleep, the monastery remains, timeless and serene, a haven of words, colors, and quiet devotion beneath the patient stars.